Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name is Regina Below, and I am working at the Center for Research on the Epidemiology of Disaster at the Catholic University in Brussels, in Belgium, since now 35 years. So it means that I have more or less built all my career at CRED. So as mentioned before, we are not coming from the operational side of the world. We are more serving the international community by providing reliable data to the to the community. So the EM-DAT database, this is what I will mainly present, has been created in '88 with the initial support of the WHO and also the Belgian government. Since 1999, the database is supported mainly by the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance of USAID. And as I have already mentioned, the database is maintained at CRED at the center, which is part of the Catholic University of Louvain. So what is usually happening, as mentioned in previous presentation, you have a humanitarian crisis. It can be a conflict, but here we are more focused on the natural disasters. And there is a great amount of data, but there is also a lot of uncertainty that we have in a way to collect all this data and ensure that the data are reliable when we provide them to the public. So the problem when this database has been built, and some of this problem has been solved with the years, but they're still there, is that there was a lack of international consensus on best practices to collecting disaster data. And there was also a lot of variability in definition, terminology, source which has been used, and so on. The state of play was that there is always a strong need of data. It was the case 35 years ago when the database has been created, but it's still the case now. So this strong needs of data is the reason is that disaster events are still increasing in magnitude and frequency. There is a continuing need for disaster data collection. And it's also an important tool for a variety of institutions and organizations. The main objective of the EM-DAT disaster loss database is to build an evidence-based, address the reliability of the data. Just to mention in two brackets, EM-DAT is not a real-time database. Our main objective is to provide the most reliable data to the public, and we disseminate the data and we provide also analysis. So what is EM-DAT? What is the content? And what are we measuring? We are measuring the occurrence, the human and the economic impact of disaster, natural disaster, and also technological one. It represents over 26,000 records from the previous century until now. We have a global coverage, so it means that we are measuring the human and economic impact at a national level. We are using inclusion criteria that I will explain a little more later. As I already mentioned, the project is funded mainly by the US government. Our objective is to provide evidence base to humanitarian and development actors at national and international level. And we are also the only publicly available disaster loss database in the world. So you can consult our database on the website www.emdat.be. So what is, because I have mentioned we are the only disaster loss database in the world. There are, of course, other disaster loss database. So just to give you a picture is that we have 5 global disaster loss database. So it means institutions which are measuring the disaster occurrence, human or economic impact at the same level as EM-DAT. So two of them are have been built and managed within university or academic institutions. So it is the case of EM-DAT, but also CRED in Karlsruhe. And the three other ones are coming from the reinsurance company. So it means that they are not public. They are serving completely different public, so it's more private, and they are much more focused also on the economic losses than the human impact. And on the other side, you have since, I don't know, more than 1 decade, a lot of national or subnational disaster loss database which are growing up in, you might be familiar probably with this Inventor database. So it's the same database as EM-DAT, but which will measure the impact of disaster at subnational level, can be a district or a province or a state. So, and as there are more or less between 50 and 60 subnational disasters in the world. So we are also not working alone in our corner. We have a network of different collaborators. You can see that most of them are the international community because they are using EM-DAT. But also other organizations like the private company Munich Re and Swiss Re, which are the two biggest reinsurance companies, are also part of our network because they are we are talking the same language. So we know what is the complexity of recording the disaster, having good data on and good sources to provide the human impact and also the economic impact of a disasters. So just here now to explain that EM-DAT, it's not only the database, so it means the maintenance of the database, but there are the EM-DAT project, so the project which is funded by BHA USAID, include different activities. So in the current project, which is a 5 years project, we have 3 main activities. So the first one, of course, is the database maintenance and the development of further product, of improving the database. And it includes here 3 sub-activities. One is the creation of a new portal, which is now available since several weeks, which include also a complete documentation of the database, which was quite important because a lot of people were asking questions. And here we have now a complete documentation on the methodology of EM-DAT, the different indicators that we are including, and so on. The second sub-activities is establishing a scientific technical advisory group of EM-DAT. In the previous slide, you have seen this network of people that we used to invite once every 2 years, which were part of the humanitarian community. And the objective of the technical advisory group meeting was to improve, of course, data of EM-DAT. Here we are focusing more on trying to give a more scientific value to the data that we are providing. And the third sub-activities is the automatization of the data collection. So I came on this subject because the question was often asked to me that, okay, how is your coverage? Are you covering all natural disaster, taking into account, of course, our criteria? Are you a complete disaster loss database? So, of course, for the main disaster, that's not really an issue, but for more small disaster, which don't always fit really in our criteria, it was a little more difficult. And then the second aspect was that it takes time. Collecting data, it's not really the biggest part of the job, I will say. What is more tricky is to validate the data, because we are using a different source. And so we came saying, okay, at some point, the human being will not be enough. So we need the technology. So now we are collaborating. We are starting to collaborate with other institutes who are already using other artificial intelligence or other tools who can help the human beings to collect data. So we are in this process now. It will not replace, of course, the human beings and the expertise that a person can have after 30 years, but it's just to make the work a little more easiest. So the second biggest activity is strengthening the partnership for local level disaster impact. So it's now a pilot project that we are leading in 4 countries. Is based on the EM-DAT model and on our methodology. We have adapted the EM-DAT to a subnational level. So it's not in concurrence with this inventor because our objectives are a bit different and we are going back retrospectively. An institution can lead over a little bit this work. As I say, it's just a pilot project, and we have first to see what will be the result. And the third main activity is, of course, data need always to be improved. When you are holding a database, you cannot just sleep on this and say, oh, it's working and nothing more is needed. So we have also weaknesses in our database. There are here three focus on epidemics and infectious disease because we are recording also the epidemics, not the pandemic. This is also a question which was asked several times. Why are you not including COVID? But COVID is not an epidemic, and there are plenty other databases which are tracking COVID numbers since years around the world. So, but also epidemic and more globally biological disaster has never been used in any statistics. So we thought that we have to see what we will do with the epidemic data. The methodology is less strong, and also these kind of events are not so well tracked than other natural disaster. The second topic is heat wave. Of course, with climate change, the human impact is quite also large. It changes and biases sometimes completely the statistics. So, and again, there is no standard methodology to measure heat wave data, but I will not only mention heat wave, there are also cold wave, which are maybe the impact is not so so visible, but it's also really difficult to have good data. And don't forget, we are making this globally. So it means that ideally we should have good heat wave and cold wave data over all countries in the world, not only Europe or I don't know, United States. And the third issue is the topics, let's say, it's the economic losses. Only 30 to 35% of our natural disasters has economic losses data. So Here, this is the definition we are using for disaster in our database. It's a situation or event which overwhelms local capacity, necessitating a request to national and international level for external assistance, an unforeseen and often sudden event that causes great damage, destruction, and human suffering. As I say, we have entry criteria, so we don't enter each single disaster in EM-DAT. So at least one of the criteria that you see on the screen has to be fulfilled. 10 or more people reported killed, or 100 or more people reported affected, a call for international assistance, and a declaration of a state of emergency. So these inclusion criteria are applied for natural disaster and technological disaster. And as mentioned on the disaster, we don't include any conflict, complex emergencies, or even terrorist attacks, or even incident which is caused by human beings. So this is the current classification that we are using. We have worked with different stakeholders from university, international research center, governmental UN institution, to get a common and standard classification. Another important thing also to keep in mind when you're using EM-DAT, what we are taking into account in our classification is the triggering event. Take an example, there is a storm which will lead to a big flooding. You have to look to storms to find the information. Hits somewhat on the methodology and how we process to collect the data. So once a disaster happens, usually we receive notices from a French agency press, which are sending item news. Then we collect the information coming from different sources. It might go from 1 to 10 different sources, depending the figure which are giving, depending the reliability of the sources, depending of the updating. So there are really different ways to track this information. So, and this information is collected daily, weekly, depending how much they are reported by the different organization. And all this information is entered in the database and updated daily. Then it goes through the validation process. So the validation process is when we choose from these different sources, according their reliability, they updating what will be the most reliable data to provide to the public. And then the data is made available for the public. So what I've mentioned before, we are not a real-time database. We are tracking the information until there is no information anymore on a specific disaster. They might be reporting 1 or 2 years after by organization. I just take the example of the situation reported by provided by the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society. Sometimes they are updated on after 1 or 2 years. So we continue to track the information until there is no more, or it is just the final one which is provided. So it means that a new data set is uploaded more or less every month. So the database is not static. It is more or less static for historical data, but for current year and even the previous year, the data might change or might be updated every month. So I will not enter too much into the details. So here you see it is the list is not exhaustive. It is our current sources. So it goes from the United Nations to press agencies, going sometimes to governmental sources, NGOs, reinsurance companies. We have set up a kind of reliability score. So it means giving more credit to the United Nations information compared to the press. We are also using other disaster database, which are more type disaster database like earthquake, we use USGS, flood, the Dartmouth Flood Observatory, epidemics, WHO, and so on. So for the future, which I have already mentioned, we are going from manual search to get more automatization in the disaster data collection. Our objective is to increase the coverage to be sure that we are not missing some event, and also to reduce a little bit the manual search. Just to be short, because I don't know if I will get a sign if I am over the time. So is that we are measuring the, but there are 3 levels in the database. So the information on the event, the information on the countries which has been affected by the event, and then all this source of information with different figure, and this go into a validation process before being made available for the public.
Regina, I'm very sorry. Time is up already, but you can do some conclusions in minutes.
So I will skip. Okay, if you want to have technical information, here you see this is the different indicators. You can always go on the website. The most of them I have already said. There is a monthly validation. There is a quality control and internal error cross-checking, and our figure has to be confirmed at least by 2 different sources before we decide to make the data available to the public. I just want to finish on this slide. There are strengths in EM-DAT because we are the unique free accessible disaster loss database in the world. We act as a reference point for global analysis and disaster occurrence and impact. It's a unique basis for policy paper on disaster reduction and risk. We have an international recognition and a credibility, and also the capacity to provide methods and guidelines. On the other side, there are weaknesses. A database is never really perfect. We stay a global database, so we have our resolution is really limited to look into local or having local level analysis, and also the public aspect of EM-DAT may lead to inappropriate use of data. So I will stop here because I can talk further on EM-DAT and the different products that we are making. I just invite the people to go on our website if you want to learn more, if you want to access to our database. I just mentioned the database is completely free and open to everybody except private companies. So you have just to register on our platform, accept the condition of use, and you can get access to the data. And if you have any question, come back to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Regina. Thank you. A little applause from Tallinn. And actually, there is no time left for questions, but we will use your database, and after that, we'll send all the questions via email. And
thank you.
Maybe we have some possibility to meet each other in the next conference. Thank you.